Hey guys, it's James. I thought I'd do a little more Macbeth espousing. Um, Before we get into the scene by scene kind of breakdown that I was talking about, I thought that I would just go over some of the most commonly made mistakes that are made in productions that don't do so well. The first one is Lady Macbeth is not a bitch. Uh, that is done constantly. She is so often portrayed as a man-eating bitch. And Macbeth is like cowed by her, and the whole thing is Lady Macbeth's fault. If Macbeth just hadn't listened to his old wife, everything would have been fine. It's so offensive. Um, there's a scene, I think it's in Act Two, to look that up. But the king, Duncan, is at the castle. He's at the Macbeth's castle, and they're having a banquet to welcome him. And Macbeth leaves the banquet and he talks to the audience and he says, I can't kill this guy. He's too popular. If I kill him and it gets out that it's me, everyone will hate me and they'll never accept me as king. He's old, but he's just too popular. I can't do it. It's not smart. And his wife comes in and asks him, why'd you leave the banquet? What's going on? And he goes, we can't do this. I've changed my mind. We're not going to kill him. And she just tears into him. And she goes, she goes there, man. She tries to question his manhood and everything. Um, but if you look at the scene, none of it works. Every time she tries something like that, Macbeth is like, "Oh, be quiet. You don't know what you're talking about." He just brushes her off every time until she says, "Okay, this is how we'll get away with it. We'll blame the guards. We'll wipe the blood from the knives that you'll use on them, and then everyone will think that they did it. And that's how we'll get away with it." And then Macbeth turns on a dime and says, "Oh my God, you are so hot. Oh my God, I'm so in love with you. Yes, let's go ahead and do it." Um, and so I think of the scene. It's like if Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci, like in Goodfellas, right? They're about to steal a car, and it's midnight, and they're underneath the street lamp, and De Niro's got the Jimmy, and he's going to put it in the window and unlock the car, and he turns to Joe Pesci and goes, I don't think we should do this. I think I've changed my mind. It's not safe. Joe Pesci would be like, "What the fuck? Are you a man or are you a mouse? You pussy. You gotta do this. Why didn't you tell me that when we were back up in the apartment? Now we're down here. You got the Jimmy in your hand. We're underneath the street lamp. We're gonna get caught just by talking. Just do it, for God's sake." And Joe Pesci would rip into him. And so Lady Macbeth is not a bitch. She's just a criminal. she's just honestly a criminal who's angry that her partner in crime is having second thoughts when the thing is about to go down. The most important thing, though, is that Macbeth, just whatever she tries, he goes nip, nope, 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 nope. It doesn't work on him. The reason that it's so important that Lady M is not a bitch is that thematically there's a scene in scene 5 when it's all gone to hell. Macbeth is being attacked in his castle. He's losing the battle. And there's a scream that happens. He sends a servant out to find out what the scream was all about, a female scream. And then he turns to the audience. He goes, "You know what? Nothing really affects me anymore. I'm numb. Stuff that used to make the hair on the back of my neck stand up does nothing to me anymore. I'm dead." And then the servant comes back and says, "What was the scream?" And the servant says, "The queen, my lord, is dead." And then there's a huge pause in the script. It's the longest pause in Shakespeare. And it's in the meter, which we could talk about later, but it's apparent that there's supposed to be a long pause. And then Macbeth just goes, she should have died hereafter. There would have been time to mourn her. She should have died tomorrow or yesterday. I don't have time to deal with it right now. So I think in that pause, the audience is supposed to be thinking, okay, that's going to affect him. The fact that his wife is now dead, that'll get through him. I know that he just told us that nothing affects him, but that one will. And there's a long pause, and then he says, I got nothing. I'm feeling nothing. And it's in this moment that the theme comes through, which is the effect of evil on the perpetrator. And it's something that criminal psychologists are just dumbfounded by, that Shakespeare knew this so far ahead of his time, that people who do heinous acts have to cut off their psychology so that they can sleep at night, or so that they can live with themselves. They have to, yeah, cut out chunks of themselves. And at the end of that process, there's this feeling of like nothing affects me anymore, and they go numb. And it's this moment that the audience realizes that Macbeth is no longer their hero, that he is truly lost, and he is never coming back. And the scene right after that, we are introduced to our new heroes, which we'll talk about later. But if Lady M is a bitch, when she dies, the audience is going to think, oh, thank God, he's going to be, oh, thank God she's gone. None of the theme is going to come through if the audience hates Lady Macbeth, or if Macbeth looks like he is henpecked by her in any way. So that's number one. Number two is, seems like a small thing, but it's actually very important. Do not have big set changes in the play. You have to do it in a stripped down version, because set changes take time. Even if they take 5 seconds, that's when there's nothing really happening. And it's not so much of a problem in Acts 1, 2, 3, and 4, but in Act 5, the play jumps around all over the place. Every scene is in a different country or in a different place. And if you have to take time to change sets, the fifth act, which is supposed to be like a freight train going faster and faster and faster and faster, it slows down to a crawl just because you're rolling out the set, rolling it away. So you've got, whatever your scene design is, you've got to be able to be lightning quick to change location in the fifth act so that juggernaut can just take off. Number 3, there's a scene. Oh wow, we're already up to 8 minutes. I'm going on again. So there's a scene where Macbeth has had to kill his best friend because his best friend knows that he killed Duncan, and his best friend comes back to him as a ghost while he's having a banquet. Macbeth is king now. A lot of actors cower from the ghost. They're going, oh, ghost, don't hurt me, oh no. This is where the guy got laughed at every night when I was doing my spear carrier role. And it's, if you look at the play and then look at the language, Macbeth is not, there's nothing that says that he's cowering. He's going, approach me like a tiger. I'll fight you. Fight me. Don't come to me. Don't come to me as Banquo, my old friend. Come to me as a dragon if you have to. Well, not dragon, but he says tiger. I read that Laurence Olivier, in a really successful production in the 50s in England, he didn't cower from the ghost. He jumped up on the table and drew his blade. And I think that's perfect. When you're scared, you have a fight-flight reaction. You either want to fight or you want to flee. And if you're playing a warrior who's a good warrior, you're not going to flee. You're going to fight. And so you've got to rush the ghost. You can't be afraid of him. Dare him to fight you. And it just speaks to a larger kind of issue, which is that if you play Macbeth, you have to do everything in your power to keep the audience behind you, to keep them in your corner until that scene that we talked about a couple minutes ago in the fifth act when they realize that you're truly lost. Every choice that you make has to be run through the filter of, will this keep the audience in my corner? Because the play is asking the audience for a big thing, which is to admit that they are more like Macbeth than they want to admit. So you can't make it harder for them to do that than absolutely necessary. You've got to try to make it as easy as possible to fool them, to bait them into keeping in your corner until that final scene where you truly fall. Okay, last one. There are witches in Macbeth. And a lot of productions try to make them more believable by making them not magical. Can't do that. The witches have to have their magic. They have to be scary. In Shakespeare's time, there were tens or hundreds of thousands of people walking around Europe calling themselves witches who believed they had magic. And everyone around them believed that they had magic too. In Shakespeare's time, witchcraft was real. Magic was real. And in fact, it was thought that if you said that words had a sort of magic, a sort of power to them, for them, if you said the word good, you were drawing good energy to you. If you said the word evil, you were drawing evil to you. And there's a scene where Macbeth kind of prays to the devil or an agent of Satan to come forth and help him. And in Shakespeare's time, the audience actually thought, when they were watching the play the first time, that the devil was going to come through the floorboards of the theater and just consume the whole theater, audience and all. Macbeth was a very controversial play, partly because of that scene. They almost closed it. I think they almost closed it down because they thought it was unsafe to be invocating publicly toward a dark spirit, even in a play. So that scene, however it's done, has got to be the most scary thing you can possibly think of when you're doing that scene. And for it to be scary, the witches have to be magic. There has to be potent, dark energies swirling around. So those are the main problems that often people fall into. And we will continue our conversation very soon. Thanks for listening for 12 minutes, 45 seconds.